It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, everyone, you are here with 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, alongside YouTube comment enthusiast Nick Jacobs, KSHB 41.
That might be my favorite one yet, Matt.
Is that your favorite one?
To you, sir.
I was pretty proud of that one. Probably more proud of that one than Andy Reid's probably proud of this preseason game tonight. But
yeah, it wasn't. Look, I took a lot of wins out of the preseason game. Like, there was a lot that I enjoyed seeing, and it was nice to see football again. Am I like, oh man, this team's in trouble? No, they're fine.
It is the preseason. It is, after all, the preseason.
Yes.
It does not translate to the regular season, but there were some good, there were some bad. We're going to get into it. The Chiefs do fall 26-13 if you're into scores of preseason games. And
I am. Thank you for
keeping track at home. Exactly. Good and bad, but we'll start out with the big news. That's really the biggest thing coming out of this, Nick, and that is Hollywood Brown getting hurt on the first offensive play of the game. Kind of going down hard on that, what looked like his left shoulder, and immediately, looked like he was in a lot of pain. And it looked very similar, Nick, to the pain and the grabbing that Tyreek Hill had in 2019 in Jacksonville. And it turns out pretty good reason for that, because he's got pretty much the exact same injury. Andy Reid said afterwards that yes, he has a posterior sternoclavicular dislocation injury. Yes, there you go. I was able to do that without my note in front of me, amazingly enough. It's a serious injury. You're hoping for the best. Tyreek Hill had a pretty clean one. They were able to reduce that in Jacksonville. No surgery was required, and he was back after 4 games. But, to Nick, to you, how does this really impact what the Chiefs are going to be, trying to do now here in the rest of the preseason and training camp and getting ready for the regular season with maybe not having Hollywood around for a while?
Yeah, I mean, first, how eerie is it that it happens on the same field against the same team, handful of years apart? Like, it was a different cornerback, because at the time it was Jalen Ramsey, if I remember correctly, and this time it was not Jalen Ramsey. So it like that in itself, like that was pretty eerie. So there must be something about that field that you just got to be mindful of whenever you get rotated like that. But no, I was worried about him having potentially a broken collarbone, just because of the pain he was in. Normally when you see guys in that pain and grabbing in the area that they are, I mean, like, you're like, oh man, just don't be a broken collarbone. So thankfully that's not, and thankfully it didn't sound like it was as serious as it could have been very quickly. So I mean, you're hoping everything's fine for Hollywood Brown on that front. But I mean, look, I mean, you've got to let him get healthy. So however long that takes, whether that's the normal 4 to 6 weeks that it supposedly can be, or if it's even longer than that, then it's going to be longer than that. But I mean, I think you're pushing if you're going to see him against the Ravens. And I know that may bum him out and everything, and I mean, we'll see on the Bengals too. I mean, who knows? But like, there's a couple other things other than the receiver tonight that I think they're going to have to make some decisions on if they need to add in some spots. But yeah, from a Hollywood Brown perspective, I mean, it's a bummer that he's not out there. But like you and I talked about before, this is why you have McCole Hardman as an option, because he can help out with Hollywood and Worthy's spots. So like this is the number one purpose of not losing the speed, because you have McCole Hardman to help out.
Yeah, and that could end up being the tricky thing. I mean, obviously, we need to get more details about the injury and what's involved. If you're the Chiefs, you're certainly hoping that the Tyreek timeline holds through. I mean, normally these injuries get talked about at like a 4 to 6 week time frame. Rick Burkholder, when Tyreek's happened, I mean, called him kind of day to day, week to week from the very, very beginning with it. And it ended up being 35 days before Tyreek gets back into his first game after that injury, 4 games that he missed. 35 days, it's 26 days until that season opener. That's a tight time frame for Hollywood. So you're thinking, you got to kind of think at this point that, hey, in the best situation, the best time frame is maybe week 2, but it could be more. And that makes, maybe some of the roster decisions are going to have at that receiver spot, because, you can't, if that's the case, you're not putting a Hollywood Brown on injured reserve because you don't want him to miss any significant amount of time. But at the same time, now you're talking about, will you need to keep an extra receiver? Does it guarantee the Chiefs are going to keep 7 receivers now? And it does create some roster questions.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on my drive home before we did the podcast, and what I personally would do if I'm in their shoes is I take that away from the offensive lineman spot. You end up keeping 9 at that point. That's what I think they can do with some of the showing I saw tonight. I'm like, yeah, you can probably go with 9, and then put that 10th person on practice squad.
Yeah, there will be some decisions to make with this team, and you mentioned what we saw tonight, Nick. So let's kind of get into it. There was some good and some bad. Let's start with the positives. Let's start, with the happy positives here. What stood out to you? What's number one on your top of mind of the good things that you saw tonight from this team?
Carson Steele had himself a heck of a game, and like that run he had early on before the goal line touchdown, the way he just lowered his shoulder into the defender and kind of stiff armed him, and then broke another tackle. And if Justin Ross had gotten out of the way, he was going to run over somebody else too. Just a physicality that I think really, really pairs well with Pacheco. That I like that. But now that you potentially have that, like, you may need a little bit more power run game call and not this outside zone finesse stuff, which I don't really like to begin with. I like counters. I like tosses. I like power. I want to run down somebody's throat. And, like, that's part of, like, honestly, like, that's what Trey Smith's specialty is. It's what it's been. And, like, I want to see Trey Smith run some people over. So bring me some power, especially if you got Carson Steele and Pacheco out there running the ball. Do it. Because, I'm sorry, Clyde didn't look explosive. Like, he looked like the tank's been empty last year, and it didn't look much better out there in the field. But Derrick Prince, another guy, had some strong, good-looking runs too. So, like, him and Carson Steele, like, they were not playing around. They both looked there was a lot of promise out there that I'm like, boy, there's a lot to this run game with Derrick and Carson and Pacheco collectively that is just really impressive.
Yeah, for Steele, Prince, and Pacheco, you had 10 carries, 61 yards on those 10 carries. So you average over 6 yards a carry, you get a touchdown. You got 3 double-digit runs. Carson Steele had 1 for 20, Prince 10, Pacheco had 1 for 16. They were ripping off big runs, making big plays. That, for those 10 touches, that's ridiculous production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna stay with a physical for my first good, Nick. I'm gonna stay on the physicality of it, but it's gonna go over to the defensive side because this was a heck of a debut for Jaden Hicks. That was just physical across the board. That tackle that he had against Bigsby out on the flat, just holding on to him for dear life, was a great one. He had a couple of really nice tackles. Probably a couple of plays he wanted back. And hey, the roughing the passer penalty that he got wasn't a late hit. He just went too high, and you can't do that. So that's a learning moment. But you all got to see what we've seen in training camp, which is that that's the way he plays all the time. He plays like his hair's on fire. And, I was interested in just waiting to see what looks like in game action. And once again, Nick, you and I have talked about before, I can't wait to see this guy going up against Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because he's going to get a chance to take a hit on those guys at some point, and he's going to enjoy it.
Oh yeah. No, so here's what I thought when I saw that hit happen, the roughing the passer one. I was like, if there's ever a time you want to deliver a message to the rest of the league, let it be a preseason game. Let them know the train known as Jaden Hicks is coming, and if you see him blitzing, you better get off those train tracks, so you better get laid out. So, like that, if there's ever a time to do it, especially since he's going to have a roster spot secured, this is the time you deliver that message, and that message got delivered. And if it didn't, then we can post it on Twitter, and it'll go viral pretty quickly. That can happen. But that was a smart play on that front. He did get caught in the wash, or as I like to call it, on the initial touchdown the ETN had, because what they did on that play is they were trying to open up the middle, and they got him to worry about the receiver on the outside there, so he turned his hips, and then he didn't keep tabs on that running back that was going to be running the angle route. So then Tranquil got out leveraged at that point, and there's going to be nothing that he could do on that front. But I'm not upset with him giving that up, because I know he's going to learn from that. Hicks is going to learn from those things. That's why I'm not upset about any of those parts. For my next one is the Chiefs' run defense. The Chiefs' run defense early on there, they were a wall. That Jaguars starting offensive line did not have a prayer. When it was Mike Pennell out there, Pennell was just destroying it. Mike Dana was just destroying it. Karlaftis was destroying it. Leo Chenal, whenever he was on the edge, they couldn't run. They couldn't move them. And I don't think people give the Chiefs enough credit with what that run defense can potentially be. A lot of it because of Mike Pennell and Drew Tranquil. Tranquil was able to flow wherever the heck he wanted because of how dominant that front four was being, and Chanel on top of it. That was so fun to watch and so fun to see.
Yeah, you had Etienne had 4 carries for 3 yards. Excuse me, 1 carry for 5 yards, which means on the other 3 carries, he went for -2. That's bottling up the number one running back on the other side. So, and you're right. I mean, seeing Pennell in the middle of that line, his run defense, it's at a even high level for him. I mean, it's almost seems like a brand new level. He's just playing with a lot of spirit in training camp. We've seen it. I don't know what's gotten into him, the fountain of youth, but whatever he's drinking, I want some of that, Nick, because he's been looking fantastic and really, really incredible. My next one for the good is probably one that will surprise you. And I know there's going to be some that are going to be thinking, Matt, are you crazy here? Because the stat line looked a lot better than a couple of the plays. But I'm going to give it to Nico Remigio because, hey, the things that unfold happen. Do you want him to be getting up and making a play like that and trying to get extra yards? Maybe after a big play like that, just go ahead and take it down. It's okay. He almost got away from it, but you know what? I mean, hey, good players get into those situations, and good players lose the football. He didn't lose the football. He ended up being down. It was a lucky break. You can say you got a lucky break there, but that was a magnificent catch. It was a really good adjustment. It made a really good play on the ball. The muff was a problem. Yes. I mean, I'm not saying it was not a great night for Nico Remigio. It wasn't perfect, but does lead the team in receiving, 3 catches, 35 yards. I think that this was a big night for him, especially coming back from the injury. I'm interested to see what's going to be looking like for him going forward. But just for him getting out there and having the night that he did, connections that he did with Oladoka, I think that was pretty promising. Like I said, it was kind of not like Hicks. Hicks had a couple of plays that I think he'd like to have back. Hey, the couple of plays that Remigio would like to have back were bigger, and they could have been problems. But I was still impressed with what we saw. I like the fact that, he just kind of bounced back. I mean, and coming back from the injury, I think this was a big first step. I want to see more from him. And hey, with Hollywood's injury and some of the other things going on, we'll see what happens on Monday. I don't know where he's going to be on the depth chart when we get to Monday, Nick. We've talked about it. Monday's moving day. That's when a lot of changes come up. So we'll see how this game unfolds for him. But I wasn't as down on Nico as I know some people were on social media.
Yeah, what I'll say on Nico, and I'll move on to my next one. The only thing that I'm nitpicking on him is that catch you were talking about that almost turned into a fumble and a return for a touchdown. Is I don't think he needed to jump. It wasn't gonna be an easy catch, but if he doesn't jump, I think it has the potential to go for a touchdown. I mean, I'll wait and see on coaches film 100%. I think they'll still do it on NFL Plus this year for preseason. But from what I saw real estate wise, I'm like, man, if he catches that actually might go inside the 15, if not a touchdown. So that was something that just for him, I hope he learns from that piece of that puzzle. But then that one, whenever you heard the pads pop on that one, when I can't remember, it was the safety or linebacker laid down afterwards and they had to walk off the field, like that showed the physicality that he's got over the middle and some of the toughness he's got, because he wasn't fazed by that one bit. Next person for me is probably going to be, if I have to, let's see. I thought Justin Ross, he had a couple of impressive catches there. That one on the sidelines. Now, is he still running the same routes that you and I talk about? Yes, he still needs on that one that was a vertical, but he made a heck of a catch on that one. And then the other one was he got to 10 yards and he ran it out, if I remember correctly, and caught that one. So I mean, am I saying that it changed anything in my eyes? No, but he stepped up when he needed to. And if the team needs to keep a seventh guy right now, which I mean, you need to, because of Hollywood Brown, like he's not hurting himself, and like that's one of those keys on that front. What about you, Matt?
Hey, I'm gonna co-sign on the Justin Ross. I mean, that's the play that he makes. I mean, we see that routinely. I mean, the back shoulder jump balls, anything of that nature, anything that's contested along the sideline like that. That's a Justin Ross is made for it. I just need to see him make other plays in other parts of the field. I mean, right. Those are great, but you need to be able to make the routine plays, and that's what he just sometimes struggles with. And if he can get over that, I mean, the potential is there. Mine, I got to go with, we've been talking about him, and there have been a lot of questions, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah had a couple of nice little flashes, and Jack Cochran does not get that sack without Felix breaking it down and creating the pressure in the first place. I thought Felix was going to even get the sack. I thought he just kind of had a second there, but then the quarterback got away before Cochran cleaned it up. But Felix helped make that happen. He had 3 tackles tonight. I think there were some problems a little bit on the edge for the Chiefs at times, later into the game, especially when the second team started getting in there. The first team had some problems too, but the interior run defense was so good that you're kind of overlooking what happened on the outside a little bit at times. But Felix, I thought, had played really, really well. Thought he showed some flashes. Definitely the pass rush, I think, was there. You got to see a little bit of it. I think you saw the improvement that he's been showing in training camp.
Yeah, and I was happy to see him continually. I know people are gonna knock this and say, well, he was playing well into the late third quarter. Yes, because he needs the reps right now. Get him as many reps as you can. I don't care if he plays all 3 offensive lines. Like, he needs the reps. He needs rep after rep after rep after rep right now, because he's behind on that from last year. So give him all the reps he can handle. Yeah, and like you said it perfectly. Like, he got upfield there, and what he did is he contained and forced Lawrence to have to stay there to allow that blitz to come through. So I mean, Felix may not necessarily get the sack, but it's because of his contain that he did that. Next one for me, Kingsley Suamataia. Watched every snap of his very closely. Went back and looked at him multiple times, even while the game's going on. That's the benefit of having an editor behind me, as you see over my shoulder there, right there. And he looked comfortable out there, and like he wasn't. I was a little nervous that maybe he'd hold on a couple plays, but he didn't. He stuck with the rushes, and like he stayed in front a lot of the times, and like he didn't get pushed back in any shape or form. So I mean, for what I saw, I was very very impressed for his first time to be able to kind of do what he did out there from a pass protection perspective, because he looked calm. He didn't look panicked. He didn't get beat to the edge in the way. I mean, the Chiefs did some play calling to really kind of ease him into it and everything, but he took advantage of the snaps that he got. And there's just the growth you see and the promise you see there from what I remember in college to where he's at right now. Like, if he just keeps working, like the Chiefs got themselves a pretty good left tackle.
Yeah, they do. I was surprised that they only gave the starting offensive line the one series. A lot of times, in this first preseason game, Andy Reid has given the offensive line, the first team, a series with the backup quarterback. Maybe that'll be something that happens in game 2. We'll see. Maybe they'll just even change things up. Maybe Carson Wentz won't get that series with the first team. But it doesn't worry me that Kingsley only got the 6 plays. I think he's going to get his snaps down the road. They're going to let the first team, I'm sure, play a little bit more in game 2. I think he'll get the work that he needs, but I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think that even the way that the Chiefs handled him tonight, even with Wanya Morris out, I mean, discounting that, they're still treating him like the starter, Nick. And, and even if they're not coming out flat out saying that he's won the job, I mean, they're sure acting like he's won the starting left tackle job. And I expect that's the way it's probably going to be going forward. We'll see what happens. But, for my next positive, I got to go with my guy, Nick. You know that I am the biggest Chris Oladokun stanner in Kansas City. He's my guy. And it may not always be flashy tonight, just 7 of 10, 85 yards, 95.8 passer rating. There was one throw that I think he could have done a better job with placement on, but other than that, I thought he did a really nice job. And no knock on Ian Book, because Ian Book did have the problem of, I think, playing in some bad situations. He's playing from behind, so Jacksonville was just absolutely able to go after him. The third offensive line didn't provide him much protection, but I think you saw tonight. I mean, what I've been contending all along is that Chris Oladokun is the third best quarterback on this team, and I'm not sure it's real close. And I think he just continues to play the best. I'm not saying he's going to make a bid for the 53. I don't know. I mean, maybe he'll show enough that some team around the league will come calling, and the Chiefs think they need to protect him. I don't know. But I've seen enough to continue investing in the kid. I think he's a good developmental quarterback. I know he's getting a little bit older, but I'd still keep him around. And for his scout team quarterback purposes too, he's a value. But once again, Nick, I enjoyed see Chris Oladokun cook.
Yeah, and I wonder if the pass you're talking about, was that the Remigio near the goal?
It was the Remigio one, yeah. That
would have been a touchdown too.
Yeah.
If he places that in the right spot. Yeah. So no, I don't disagree with anything you said on him. I mean, I think he would be a quality practice squad guy. I wouldn't use a roster spot on him. Even if another team, I know it's not, if another team takes him, then another team takes him. But I think the Chiefs have a particular. The Chiefs know how to use him in a way I don't think a lot of other teams will. I know that sounds mean to say, but it's honest. I think the Chiefs coaching staff knows what Chris can do. They like to tailor plays to what fits his style and everything. And let me put it this way: there's not 31 other offensive geniuses out there in the NFL. Otherwise, the Chiefs would have a tougher time trying to win the championships they do. So, I'd say on that one, on that front. So, you got any more positives before we start getting negative here, Matt?
I think we're probably about there. I mean, there were some things that I thought were some good and some bad. I mean, Matt Araiza, except for I think one punt, had a pretty good debut for the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So he certainly had some moments. Montreal Washington probably also, I think, deserves a little bit of a little accolade. I think he had a nice catch and obviously had a nice kick return. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of guys that I think had some, good and bad and everything. There were some things that weren't terrible, but, we do have to talk about the things that were terrible. So I'm intrigued to see what was at the top of your list tonight.
I was really disappointed in a lot of the special teams. Kickoff, kick return. I mean, I understand it's new and I understand all that. So, I'm not saying it's not fixable and it's ridiculous or anything like that. I just thought for as much time as they invest in OTAs and mini camp and training camp, how much time they put into it, I just thought they would have better contain on some of their kickoff coverage. Kick return, they did perfectly fine. I mean, I know McCole had the safety that really wasn't a safety, but they called it a safety because everybody's confused right now in the preseason. Hey, as long as it didn't happen in regular season, I don't care. So, get get the beta testing done, and that's fine. But like I know Remigio had the one that he had to kind of smack out of the sidelines again. Not something that's just massive to me, but I don't know. I thought some of the coverage would be better than what it ended up being, because the Jaguars gashed him multiple times when it really shouldn't have happened. Whenever I was like, really? You guys work on this enough that this, even if it's vanilla, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, the first kickoff return was the most disconcerting for me, because that was the first team out there. I mean, that was the starters on your special teams coverage. It wasn't just the guys you've been coaching up in camp and a bunch of backups. How was your first team unit that got gashed? And that, not good. Yes, the NFL is going to need to tweak the rule in some way because going through the rule book, it wasn't really specified what happens when a ball bounces in the end zone and then comes out of the end zone, but it's a live ball. And Derrick Prince just ignored it. I mean, that's the part that you can't do. I mean, that was the real foul up on that play. McColl tried to fix it. Not sure that's the correct fix of pulling the ball into the end zone, but there's a lot of confusion on that. The league definitely needs to clear it up, because there wasn't really any talk about what to do. I mean, you could clearly tell. I mean, both those guys were confused. After the game, Andy Reid was confused because he was also unclear about what the rule is. But unless the league changes it in the next 48 hours or so, I mean, this is the thing to remember. A ball that goes into the end zone is a live ball. Until it is either downed or goes out of bounds, it's a live football now. That's not the way it used to be. So that should be the less. And hey, like you said, it happened in a preseason game. So now there's no excuses for not being able to fix that going forward and making sure that it doesn't happen again, regardless of whether or not the league makes any clarification on what that rule should be and how it should be enforced. But that's my little rant there. I've got to give my first thorn, Nick, to just the entire first team defense. I mean, even though there were some moments, that first drive, there wasn't much defense being put up there. The first team, and they played more snaps than I expected. I'll be interested to see what the snaps come out, but there was a lot of them, and I don't know if this Spagnuolo just kept them out there for another drive because he wanted to get that bad taste out of their mouths. But that was a rough first drive, and I mean, you can use all the discounting that you want. It's the preseason. You didn't have Chris Jones. You didn't have Nick Bolton. You didn't have Justin Reed. I mean, that's the core of your defense up the middle. I get that. But there was a lot of, just miscommunication, missed tackles, everything on that first drive. Nothing was perfect on that first drive. Just too many mental mistakes, too many miscues, technical issues. I mean, it was all across the board.
Yeah. Next one for me, it's kind of a twofold thing, but I'll go to the next one after this. The number 2 corner spot, like who wants it? Like, because right now nobody's showcasing that they want it out there, and it's getting to a point now where Chiefs may have to start thinking about if they want to add a veteran or if they want to go trade for somebody, and so like they're at that point now. I mean, could you write it out and kind of see where you're at middle of the year and everything? Sure, you could, but like, I mean, you were hoping Nick Jones would have a better showing than what he did, because on that touchdown by I believe it was Devin Duvernay, he got turned around. He thought he was going to go inside. He didn't. Then he had to flip his hips and turn around, and he tried to track the football at that point. He was already too late at that point. He got lost in the lights at that point, and then he wasn't going to be able to time it well. And then Joshua Williams on that one play, like he was lost on that one too. So I mean, and then Kamal Haddon, like he had a rough night, and then Traylor, he had a rough night too. And like there's just plays like I see Haddon and Trail all the time just trying to cover, and then there was a run to the outside. It was a big run. And Kamal needs to be more aggressive when the block's coming. He's got to smack and rip through it, and it was a tight end, and he's got to be able to take that edge back. And then Keith, like he needed to. that offensive lineman's coming out to pull, you got to go into his thigh pads and take it out and create the pile right there and help reset that edge from that point to where the back has to slow down and bounce it out, or he's funneled in to Haddon and that pursuit right then and there. And like it was just frustrating for me to watch some of the cornerback play. But then like you said, like Jaden Hicks and then Deion Bush made up for it with some really big hits, from a safety perspective. But corner, I mean, they'll get better because it's obviously Dave Merritt and everything, but I'm really underwhelmed with what we continue to see. The days are stacking up more and more, and unless Jalen Watson can get healthy and take it over, or if Najee Johnson gets healthy, and part of me kind of wonders with Najee Johnson, like, where's his knee at right now, and what type of confidence is there? Because the way he got beaten some one-on-ones this past week at practice, like that wouldn't like him last year. And so I don't know if he feels like he's back to 100% yet. He doesn't look it. And like, that's not me knocking him. That's just the reality of where he's at. Because some of those receivers he's getting beat by, I'm like, man, he wouldn't get beat by them last year. So, so I don't know. There's a big question mark about who's going to be starting opposite Trent McDuffie, and it didn't feel like anybody answered it tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be next on my list, so I'm going to share it with you there, Nick.
Yeah, go for it.
Because, I think the best thing that you can hope for from the Chiefs standpoint is that, Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson or Kelvin Joseph, who didn't play tonight, are all better than what they got tonight. But the problems do go deeper than that because, the Chiefs went into this, training camp, went into this season with the hope and the expectation Nick Jones was going to be the backup, maybe behind Shamari Connor, behind their slot. I'll tell you, and certainly seeing some of the things in practice this, of late, I think that the backup behind Shamari Connor, if something were to happen to him, is Trent McDuffie. I think they're at that point, and then that brings up to you. Now, not only would you need, one more starter opposite Trent McDuffie, but then you'd have to have a second one. And so tonight, I think Josh Williams and Nick Jones both kind of failed their assignments in trying to give the Chiefs some comfort that they can man those spots and that they can be trustworthy there. Because now, it's going to be up to these other guys. And Jalen Watson is just getting back to contact. I think you have to have reasonable hope that he's ready to go and will be ready to go by week 1. But they're still easing him back in. Najee Johnson had the setback with the knee. How much is that? I think that's probably affecting him, like you said, more mentally than maybe physically at this point. He just needs to be able to break past that and make sure that he's got that full confidence in the knee. Joseph, has the hamstring tweak. So now, I think it's the hamstring.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was the hamstring. Getting him and someone else confused my head there for a second. But, Joseph has never been more than an average replacement level corner. You're just hoping that in this system, maybe he's the right fit. We don't know that yet. So you need to find out. You only got 2 more preseason games to figure that out, Nick. And right now, you're right. If the Chiefs went out shopping for a veteran corner to just add to the depth, to give them some, maybe a floor, I wouldn't be stunned. Although I still think that edge is probably their bigger concern, but corner's becoming a bigger concern.
Yeah, and I'll go right into it now since you just kind of mentioned it, and that was going to be part of the list is defensive end depth. They're going to have to go find some. Like Truman Jones wasn't able to kind of get the rushes you would want to see to feel comfortable. Felix can be a part of the puzzle, but he's not going to be the main piece of the puzzle. And you're not going to have Charles Omenihu for a while, so like they're going to have to see if there's a trade available out there. And I'm not talking like you go big. I'm talking like who's somebody who's potentially going to get cut and you're checking around in the league right now. Hey, what do you got a surplus at corner and DN here. Would you like a wide receiver? Or, is there something else you'd like? Is there an offensive lineman? What is there that you would potentially like on? And then let's make a deal. So like, that's kind of on that front. Like they're gonna need a little bit of corner help just to kind of maybe shake some people up a little bit and kind of make them either sink or swim. And then they're gonna need a rotational defensive end to bring in there, whether it's a veteran or somebody that's potentially going to get waived in a couple or would get waived in a couple weeks, and you go make a trade for them. They need to start kind of. This week is where they probably start doing that now and trying to get that locked in before the following Thursday when they play that preseason game.
Yeah, and hey, Brett Veach will tell you, Andy Reid will tell you their beliefs that games are won in the trenches, and I don't think it's necessarily entirely the depth there that's a concern. I mean, they need to be sharper on the offensive side too. Tonight was probably a little bit about learning, and granted, I mean Wanya Morris wasn't out there, so that takes one of your you're feeling like your number 3 tackle off the list, so then everybody moves up one. So maybe that affects you a little bit out there. Chu Godric maybe getting some snaps in places that you wouldn't normally see him. But they had a bad snap with Mike Caliendo tonight. That is not Caliendo's natural position. I mean, he's much more comfortable at guard. Norzad, I think, is much more comfortable at center. He had a penalty tonight. I'd like to see it on the all 22, Nick, because that was just a downfield penalty. I mean, that's just could be just a rookie inexperience. It also could have just been the officials being a little bit nitpicky on it too. You never know. Yeah. But I mean, I think Hunter Norzad's a more natural backup center than Caliendo is, but they've got some things to figure out, especially because, you need that to start considering it for next year and developing, who is going to be, maybe one of your, or not two of your starters next year. And you got to feel comfortable with when Wanya comes back, if he's your left tackle, and Lucas Niang, if he's going to be okay. I don't think it's necessarily anybody. I certainly don't get the sense and think that the Chiefs are going to be going out and looking for offensive line help in depth, but the third line really had a rough night. I mean, there were times that it wasn't good. Now, like I said, I mean, Chiefs were behind. They were in passing situations, so they were getting Jacksonville with their ears pinned back going after him. But Ian Book was running for his life a couple of times.
Yeah, and that's my final negative I'm going to do for the night is the Chiefs' offensive line. Not the first team. First team was gold. Second team had some hiccups, and here's part of the reality. For Norzad and Hansen, like, they're going to need a year of strength training to get up to an NFL level. Like, Hunter's got better technique than Hansen does right now, but they both need a year to be able to kind of get their strength training to where they're going to be good, promising interior offensive linemen. And they're both going to have to develop on that front. Caliendo, whether it's center or guard, he's just not that strong. And like that's kind of my knock on him. And that's where I don't know long term. This is kind of a year where he kind of decides what he will or won't be for that, for this team. And right now I've got my concerns that from a strength perspective that he may not be able to hold up, but we'll see how things go and how things shake out over the next couple of weeks and long term. There was one play where Chu Godric, it was the one where Carson Wentz rolled out to his left and ended up taking a sack before he could get to the line of scrimmage. What ended up happening on the play is they were in a TE stunt, and Hunter takes the guy who's coming at him, but then Chu lets his guy go. So Hunter is he's taking on two defenders. And he's like, all right. So he did his best here. And then he tried to slow down the other guy so Wentz would have time to go out there. And Chu Godric's just kind of, standing there like, oh, hey. And it's like, Hunter did the best he could on that one. Props to him. And then Lucas Niang his kick step just isn't as fast as it needs to be against some of the guys he's going against. And what he was supposed to be is a third-round pick coming out. Ethan Driscoll had a tough night at tackle. So yeah, it just, for some of those guys, some of them, technically probably may not even be on the 53, but for the most part, there was a lot along that offensive line that you're like, part of it comes down to strength that, from a strength perspective, they're going to have to fix some of those things.
Yeah, a lot to learn from, a lot to improve when the Chiefs get back to St. Joe on Monday for the last 4 days of training camp in St. Joe. They've got some things to work on, Nick, and I know from watching Wes Perry during the pregame show, if you're going up to training camp on Monday, watch the forecast because it looks like things might move indoors with the rain in the area. If there's any lightning, that will certainly move the team indoors. So be on the lookout.
That's a late practice, isn't it? Like 10:15.
I thought it was still a 9:15, but I could be wrong about that. So I thought it was a normal time, but I could be wrong. But yeah, be on the lookout if you're heading up to practice. Watch out for the weather. And then next Saturday, Nick, Chiefs are back at it preseason.
Yes,
3:00 Saturday on 41 KSHB 41.
It'll be on KSHB 41. Pregame starts 2:00 in the afternoon, so that'll be 2 to 3. We'll be out there for that. And then the game will be on KSHB 41. You will not have to look for it. It'll be on KSHB 41. And then we will have post game immediately following it. I'll be producing both of those shows. So that will be, that'll be an intense day, Matt. I will be very worn out if we do a show that night.
I was going to say I'll be very interested to see if you have the strength to keep standing to do the show after the game, or we might need to push that thing to Sunday morning. But
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the day goes and go from there. So Matt, according to the website right now, Monday, August 12th, 10:15 a.m. practice. Tuesday, 9:15. Wednesday 9:15, and then Thursday is Military Appreciation Day. The final practice at 8:15.
Yeah, and that's the day that they are trying to get out of there. If you come up to practice, you'll notice they'll be taking down the tents around you because they're trying to get out of there and get done with camp. So
yeah, and if I remember correctly on that Monday one when they come back, that with it being at 10:15, I think those are kind of like a 10-10-10, like very quick, effective practice to kind of let their bodies heal and recover, give them the 2 days back from playing in a physical game like that.
Yeah, the Monday it'll be kind of a rest and recovery day, and then Thursday's always a kind of a 10-10-10 to get out of there. Yeah. Play closing time as you're leaving St. Joe and head back to Kansas City. So, any parting thoughts from you, Nick?
No, I thought you said it perfectly with calling it moving day. It's 100% true. It happens on moving day.
It's moving day. I am going to give one more quick shout out from our goods. I should have mentioned it, but you know what? Louis Rees-Zammit looked fine. I was really worried about him in his first effort. He had a tackle tonight, Nick. I mean, he didn't look completely lost on the field. Running wasn't great, but had a catch. I mean, considering that was his first NFL game, I mean, there's a lot of people who've never played the football before who would have looked completely lost, and he did not. He held his own. I mean, I still think there's a lot of work to do, but he held his own.
Yep. That's all I got, so we can hit this at the perfect time, as you know.
I know, my friend. Take care, everybody. We will see you next week.
Till next time, I bid you adieu.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.